Hi everyone, this is Marie here with Funding for Good, and today we're going to talk about quick tips for getting your team on board for strategic planning. You may have a board that's gung-ho about the planning process and staff is dragging their feet, or maybe your staff sees the importance in a strategic plan and the board's not quite ready to jump in. So how do you start that conversation? How do you make sure everyone is on the same page? That's a question we get all the time from people from all over the country, literally. So today we're going to tackle that quickly. The first important thing to understand is that recent studies indicate that 50% of nonprofits in the United States do not have a strategic plan in writing. So that's saying half the organizations really don't know exactly where their organization is going. And if you ask two individual team members, they might have two different responses. 77% of those nonprofits indicate that their lack of strategic plan also impacts their ability to successfully plan for succession. So just knowing you don't want to be among those 50% of organizations that don't have a strategic plan should be a quick start for this conversation. So if you're going to go before your board or your staff and encourage them to start the strategic planning process, this is a simple way I like to do it in workshops. Imagine that I'm your board chair, I'm one of your valued board members, and I say we're going to all go on a retreat on July 4th. We're going to meet up in California July 4th, and we're going to have this important conversation or meeting. Does everyone know where we're going? Yes, to California. Do we know when? Yes, on the 4th of July. Sounds simple, right? But some of your board members might decide to take a direct flight, while others take a scenic route by car, others jump on a train, and they all might end up in different locations in California, because California, after all, is a big state. So just because you define something does not mean that everyone is seeing it the same way. A strategic plan is a roadmap to get you where you're going. It tells you how you're going to get there and essentially the timeline, which is the speed. So regardless of the fact that all your board members headed to California on July 4th, still didn't mean that they were getting there at the same speed, using the same tools, or even ended up in the right place. Can you imagine the confusion that can cause for your organization when everyone thinks they know where they're going, but they're doing it at their own paces and with their own resources? So I would say that this would be a good argument for the board and the staff to say, hey, we want to make sure we all end up in the right place. And while it seems obvious, let's make sure that we define the exact location, our timelines are specific, and the tools we use and the speed we get there is all understood. Because what if my strategic plan says we're going to hire a second staff member and it's put in there for 2 years down the road, and I decide I want to jump the gun and get a grant in the next 6 months? Maybe the organization isn't equipped to sustain that staff position after the initial grant period, but because I simply saw we're going to add a second staff member and didn't pay attention to the timeline and the speed we were moving in that direction, I could jeopardize the ability to maintain that staff long term. So that's one thing. The next thing is that strategic planning and the strategic plan is the most valuable tool in your toolkit, because donors want to invest in your impact. They want to know that you have a plan and that you're going towards a specific destination. If you don't have a strategic plan, you cannot ensure donors that their dollars are being invested for long-term impact. So that's point 2. And finally, as board and staff have to work together, one of the most conflictive relationships that happens is between the board chair and the executive director, because one is a manager and the other is kind of a governor of the organization. In order to keep that consensus between board and staff and make sure everyone's operating on the same page, you need a plan. And a detailed strategic plan helps keep everyone on the same page and make sure that everyone can be evaluated according to those standards. Last but not least, it encourages the success and sustainability of your organization. A strategic plan goes a long way for making sure that you're going to be here for many, many years to come. So hopefully this is helpful as you get everyone on board for strategic planning.